All right, I have 6 o'clock, so we will call the meeting to order. And if you will all please join me, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Flags in the back. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Meeting guidelines and safety protocol briefly. Just want to mention that the purpose of this meeting is for the board to conduct board business. The meeting is open to the public and is recorded. You can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through our district website. And this meeting is presented through via Zoom. And it's not appropriate for audience members to interrupt board business or ask questions during the meeting. There is a portion of the meeting that's reserved for public comments. Board members will not engage in discussion or debate with members of the public, and the superintendent may provide information if appropriate. The board chair acknowledges input received and may, if needed, ask the superintendent to look into a matter and report back to the board. If there are any concerns about individual district employees or any specific complaints that require administrative response, please contact the superintendent directly. So we do have a sign-up sheet located on the sign-up front there. And also, if you are attending the meeting virtually, you will signify that by using the raise hand feature via Zoom. And we will, of course, attempt to observe the order at which the hands are raised and try to do public comment accordingly. And so with that, that brings us to our vision and mission statements. I believe we have both Director Stauffer and Director Johnston online with us. So Director Stauffer, would you care to read our vision and mission statement?
Sure. Vision. Our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Our mission, in connection with our community, the Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so each student thrives.
Thank you, Director Stauffer. And Director Halverson, would you like to read our land acknowledgement?
Sure. The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the Sklallam people. While the Sklallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of 3 sovereign Sklallam tribal governments. Lower Elwha Sklallam tribe, located in Port Angeles, Washington, Jamestown Sklallam tribe, located in Sequim, Washington, and Port Gamble Sklallam tribe, located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown Sklallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
Thank you. And that brings us to approval of our minutes. And I would be happy to take a motion.
I move we approve the May 9th regular school board minutes.
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
April 25th.
April 25th. Okay. Director Stauffer, April 25th, correct? Is
that is
fine?
Correct.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please go ahead and vote when it is indicated online. We'll try this online via board docs.
I'm seeing it on there, but I'm having trouble getting it to register. I mean, I'm trying to click on it.
Okay.
Is Larry having problems as well?
Hasn't come up yet.
Oh,
Yes, I'm in.
Just checking. Just trying to be helpful.
Did that go again for everyone?
Try to relaunch it there.
There we go.
Mm.
Did it pop up for you?
Popped up for Director Jeffries. I had to go in and select the change vote option to have it re-register. Director Stauffer and Director
Other way around.
Halverson might have to do the change vote option.
I don't see anything on my screen though.
Do you see top right where it's red? See that?
Oh, change vote.
Yeah, try that. And then
You just hit AI again.
yeah,
Nice.
there it goes. And now just any Director Johnston, any luck?
No, I mean, I see it. I see it on here, but it's not allowing me to register the vote. I don't know why.
Do you have it open in a separate window?
Okay. Open a separate window.
Yeah, and then be logged into Board Docs on that separate window.
Oh, okay. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my Zoom. Okay, let's see. I mean, I'm logged into Board Docs. So what would I do after that?
Well, why don't we, let's try this one and go ahead and indicate your vote via voice and Tracy can indicate it.
Yeah, aye.
Yeah, thank you. Tracy will go ahead and put that in. We'll see if it pops up the next time for you.
Oh, there it is now. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Tracy just entered it. Okay, got it.
Yeah, you won't see it on that screen because that's just the Zoom screen you're observing. So that's why it has to be in a separate window to allow the pop-up to.
Oh, okay, okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, I'll be happy to take a motion for the next May 4th.
Mr. Chair, I motion to approve the May 4th special meeting minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the May 4th special meeting minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, go ahead and vote when indicated. Anything pop up for you, Director Johnston?
No, I'm probably just doing this wrong. So if Tracy could just record a yes vote for me, I'd appreciate it.
We can do that. All right, and that is approved. And that brings us to our agenda. And I do have one change regarding our agenda. So perhaps if a motion could approve this, we will need to delay our vape information item to our next board meeting. I will not be able to hear that this evening. So I'd be happy to hear a motion with that. I would recommend that amendment be made to the motion approval.
Mr. Chair, I recommend pulling the vape presentation from the consent agenda and moving it to our next meeting.
All right, to clarify, not the consent agenda, just the regular agenda. Is that what you mean?
All right, I'll make the change. I recommend moving the vape presentation to our next meeting, which is that May 24th? Is that correct? Or May 23rd?
We have to talk about when our next meeting is going to be. Actually, that's on our agenda as well. But just our next meeting would be sufficient.
Okay, my motion to move the vape presentation to our next meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, so it's been moved that we approve the agenda with the change of moving the vape discussion to the next regular board meeting. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, go ahead and vote when indicated.
I vote aye as well.
Thank you. All right, that is approved, which brings us to our consent agenda. I'd be happy to take a motion on that.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Do we have any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just want to make note of 2 donations. One from Sequim Sunrise Rotary. I think it's approximately $3,000. So I appreciate their ongoing support. I believe that goes to our McKinney Vento and Joe Rantz fund that they're working on. And then I see Walmart also assisted with some donations there, and I much appreciate both the business and then a community service club. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify through online voting or verbally when you're ready.
I vote aye.
All right, that is approved. And that's going to bring us to 5.01, public comment. And each individual does have up to 3 minutes. Groups of individuals may combine their time up to a 10-minute maximum with one spokesperson for the group. Individuals who wish to speak or combine their time do need to sign in on the public comment board. And we'll have both in-person and virtual comments, as I've indicated before. And do want to say once again, it is not appropriate for complaints or charges about employees to be mentioned during public comment. These issues are to be addressed to the superintendent in writing. The board and superintendent or district personnel typically do not engage in district conversations or give feedback during the meeting. Questions, comments, those addressing maybe to the board may be referred to staff for follow up at a later date if needed. Also do want to point out, again, this is something I actually brought up in our previous special meeting. It's in a small community such as ours, it's also to be particularly mindful that even if you're not referencing employees by name, sometimes just a position can be just as identifiable as a name. And again, I would say that it's still not an appropriate venue to bring those types of comments. We would want to make sure that anything like that gets addressed. So please bring that to the superintendent directly versus through a public comment venue. So with that we do have, we'll start with our in-person comments, and I do have Mark Simpson signed up. Mark?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm not sure if I stand or what I.
Yeah, if you want to stand, you can actually come right up here, and that way the cameras can kind of make sure to pick up your voice. And...
Just gonna pass out a couple of things
okay.
Talking about as I walk up here.
And get past through the maze.
This is an agility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That many people there.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm Mark Simpson. I'm the president of SQUIM Youth Skate Park Foundation, a 501(c)(3) locally. We've been operating for about 7 years, started in 2015. We are on the master plan for Carrie Lake, and we are trying to redo the SQUIM skate park and rebuild a section that would be easier for the youth of SQUIM to just enjoy and develop skills. And possibly someday we'll have a SQUIM youth in the Olympics, because skateboarding was in the Olympics this year for the first time. And so our goal is to, you know, I'm just painting the dream about what the park could look like with a new park. If you look at it now, it's kind of looks like a prison camp. It's very gray, it's very outdated. And when they built it, I mean, it was beautiful. It was, they didn't know what they were doing back then. It was such an infancy for building skate parks. And so now there's companies out there that know how to do a lot better job and to make things safer. And that park's been falling apart in the last little bit because it's 25 years and hasn't really been kept up. And so my goal as a 501(c) is to fix that and then possibly develop, well, not possibly, I think we are doing it. Right now we're at $20,000 that we have raised, just about $20,000. And we do different events throughout the summer and do fundraisers and skateboard contests and all that. Our next event is June 25th at the park. I do have a website. I don't know if we've got the donation link, but we will probably within the next week. So if it might be up now, I haven't checked it. But anyways, I don't know if that's my 3 minutes, but a lot of things. And on the back side of this, you can see all the local businesses that have helped us. And there's quite a few. There's businesses from California. There's businesses from Paulsbo and Port Orchard. And so there's a lot of people that travel to enjoy skateboarding, roller skating, BMX when there is a good park. And so that could bring in tourism. It also could bring in doctors from other, you know, areas that have kids that skateboard, and they go to our park and they go, oh, it's not what we had in California. Mm-hmm. And I know that's been a problem with, you know, certain medical facilities here trying to recruit. So it's a greater need than a lot of times people think, because when you have something that's good in your parks, it travels through the whole community. But that's all I have to say. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure. And next we do have Trish. Hello. I don't know. Is it Gang?
Gang?
Okay. Hi, welcome.
Hi. I just saw tonight before I came here in the paper there on the article about school cuts, And I realize the importance and why it's happening. So I just encourage you, it's happened before here, and we always encourage to keep as many teachers as we can, and to take a hard look at all the administrators in the district. That was one thing that in my heyday, people were really concerned about, were too many administrators when you were cutting staff. So I just encourage you, and I know you will, look and keep as many teachers as you can, and that's what we do our kids for. So that's all I had to add. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That is all that we have for in-person public comment. Do we have any virtual public comment? If we do, please indicate by using the raise hand feature, which should be located down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. All right, I am not seeing any. Just wanted to pause a little bit because sometimes technology can be tricky. So, all right. So, with that, that closes that portion of the agenda and brings us to our student board representative reports. So, who would like to go first?
I think.
Okay, sure.
Sequim High School would like to say that May is the month of mental health awareness, but not only. It is also the busiest month, especially for seniors and juniors, starting with the AP exams for both grades that are still going this week, but also because this is the last month where seniors get to be busy with high school work. May 7th was the day when senior ball was held at the senior class wanted to thank everyone who contributed, donated, helped with the planning and organization of the ball. Thanks to everyone who helped, we got to have a magical night celebrating our achievements in 4 years. I also got a chance to attend the opening night at the musical Emma, and it was a great decision. The cast, together with the director, Tia Stevens, had done an incredible job at mixing drama, comedy, musical, all together, succeeding in creating a great production. I couldn't go and meet with the middle school, so I don't have a report for them. So this is my report for tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Kim?
I got a couple things. First from Grey Wolf, they just wanted to say that they wrapped up their Teacher Appreciation Week and they thought it was a good success. They'd like to celebrate the staff. Their PTA had special things planned for every day of the week, and their para team and also their students helped make thank you notes to all their teachers. And they just wanted to appreciate their teachers once again because they're the reason that our schools keep going. They also wanted to say that they wanted to thank the Swim Beautiful Day Project and with their team of volunteers, as well as the Swim Community Church, Brady Truck & Co., Cascade Bark, and Rada Paint for transforming the front of their school and painting the portable and some of the other things around their campus. And they want to express their gratitude for their generosity. Also, their fourth graders had a visit from the park rangers at Olympic National Park, and they learned about some of the more habitats. And each student also received a pass to access all the national parks with their families for free next year. That's usually a tradition that's been happening in the school for a while. And it's a federal public lands initiative to encourage youth and their families to get out and explore the great outdoors. Next, from OPA and Dungeness Virtual Schools, they want to say that their state testing is up and running and they're confident their students are going to do really good this year. And they're looking forward to seeing the results. They also wanted to give a thank you to the DO support team for all the behind the scenes coordination they do for Dungeness Virtual Schools. And then from Helen Haller, they also wanted to say that their SBA testing is going on for their grades 3 through 5 and their final academic benchmark testing. They also have a books for summer book bagging program going on the next couple of weeks in their Helen Haller gym, and it's going to be happening on the 26th. They're going to put together around 500 book bags, and each book is going to contain 6 self-selected books, a Helen Haller reading tag, and a UW reading log to help their students over the summer to get them back with academic for reading. They also want to thank their PTO members to announce awards and hand out prizes, and they had a lot of cool prizes for their students for the end of the year, such as a ride on a fire truck, rides in limos, class pizza parties, gift certificates to Shadowline, Dungeness Kids, and the Sweet Spot. And they're very grateful for their amazing PTO and incredible community for sponsoring all of this. And lastly, they want to remind everyone that registration for all grades is open and that they're registering kindergartners and will be screening tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. in their gym. And that's all I have for today right now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to our regular board communication. Why don't we start with our virtual board members? Director Stoffer, would you like to start us off?
Sure, thank you. And I appreciate this opportunity because I have a bit of a bug and I didn't want to share it there in person with folks. So this is a much safer place for us right now. Thank you, students, and thank you, Caleb, for bringing up about the SCWM Beautiful Day. Their work has enhanced our buildings over several years there, and just really appreciate that work of the SCWM Beautiful Day Foundation. Back in March, I asked about our new hire with the mental health program manager. And I know it's grant funded, but I'm hoping we can have a presentation sometime in the next board meeting or so forth, just so we can have a little more details. And with it being May being mental health program, I think that would be beneficial for us all. And thank Ms. Packer for her very thorough report on her community engagement outreach there. And I want to thank her again for her work. There's a couple policies that I had sent out. Both of them are dealing with sexual harassment, and I encourage my colleagues to look at those policies that Seattle School Board recently looked at, and they separated them into two different policies, one for students and then one for staff. And so I just hopefully can put that on our future work here, but not too far distance of the future. And then with our Mr. Sampson here tonight, I had invited him because I'd seen some of his work with the Skatepark, which points towards the other community work that we'll need to get support for other facilities. And back in 2018, a group was formed and they called themselves SWIFT, and it stood for soccer, weld, because welding the groups together, football, and track. And this was some community members, some staff members, and what they were looking to do was to combine forces and seek funding for athletic facilities throughout the district. And at first they called themselves the Turfers, but that just didn't roll off the tongue as much as SWIFT did. So this is the type of work that we need. And I noticed Wellpient School District, which is over near Spokane, 69 students. It's one of the smallest school districts, but they just got a grant from the NFL for their football field and track. And it will probably be the showcase for that whole area because they're going to have a top shelf track and field. And so there's a lot of opportunities there. And then at my old high school back in Nampa, Idaho, they're selling planks and pieces of the gym flooring because they're about to remodel the whole thing. So you can get a piece of the gym flooring for a certain amount and get the whole name for another amount, so forth. So a lot of ideas out there to bring community together, and hope we can develop that. And then lastly, attended the regional meeting over in Central Kitsap on Saturday, and I'll let Larry and Eric speak more of that, but it was really good getting together for colleagues and seeing the good work that Central Kitsap is doing there at Olympic High School and in their CTE, robotics and drones and a few other things. But thank you and all the best.
Thank you. Director Johnston?
I don't really have anything to report this meeting, so I think I will just defer to the rest of my colleagues. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Director Halverson?
Thank you. I just want to say a little bit about, I'm continuing my tour of the schools and getting to know the district, and one by one gradually. And so this last week I went to visit Helen Haller and talked with Christy Queen, the principal, and also the assistant principal, Sarah Decker. It was a great conversation. They gave me a really interesting tour of the school. And I was just so impressed with their drive, their dedication, their commitment to the work. They have a lot of energy. I mean, it was just, the room was vibrating when I was talking with Christy and Sarah. So it was very, it was really impressive. When I went around and visited the classrooms too, all very busy. Kids were on point, paying attention. And it was really, you know, I saw Christy being not only a really tough-minded principal, but also someone who kids felt really comfortable running up to and hugging. And I just found that wonderful. And that sort of says a lot about the culture, I think, at Helen Haller. We did talk about how students are really struggling this year coming back from being home for a couple years, and especially the young students who have never really been in a school setting. And we talked a bit about how fast the kids are catching on, you know, and that the schools really having the teachers and staff really had to pay a lot of mindful attention to the basic needs of these students, learning how to sit in a classroom, learning how to interact with their fellow students, learning how to interact with the teacher, and just these really kind of basic things that they have had to learn very fast once they've gotten into the classroom. So that's been a big, I think, a big hurdle for all grade schools, and I think Helen Haller's made a lot of progress with that. What I saw were kids really, really functioning well in the classroom. And I just think about how imperative it is for we as a community to really come together and care for our kids and to get them ready for the world that they're going to be entering as leaders and citizens. And from what I could see at Helen Haller, they're really getting off to a good start. I will say that as we walked around, it was a particularly wet day and the gutters were just like, water was everywhere. Mm-hmm. Water was everywhere. And the building, as we all know, it's an old building. It is a building that probably has outlived its usefulness. But the fact is, and we all know that, but they make do with what they have, and the interior building is all painted in bright colors, and it's sort of a all that color was sort of a metaphor for what teachers and staff have to do these days to make it work. You know, we can't go and build a new school tomorrow, but we can at least do a little bit to create a positive learning environment for our children. So I felt that was I was just impressed by the end of the day, and I'll be going to visit Gray Wolf in a couple of weeks. I know that they're busy next week with testing, so I'll be going over there and experiencing the Gray Wolf world. So that's my report about my tour of the schools. I also just wanted to mention I'm continuing to be interested in, as we all are, in student voice, and as we move into the period when we can select our new student rep to replace Elisa, which are big shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. But I will have to be thinking, I think, more directly about how we can support our student reps and make them as effective as possible. So that's my report.
Great, thank you. Dr. Jeffries?
Yeah, first of all, I want to wish all the AP students and testing and SBA testing going on to elementary levels and middle school all over the best effort on their part, so that our students can shine, and our teachers are doing a fantastic job. But it is a stressful time those of you that aren't here in person, the library is still set up for AP testing. And when we leave, we have to get it set up exactly like it was for AP testing coming up this week, tomorrow. Yeah, Director Stauffer mentioned that Director Pickens and he attended the Region 4 WASD meeting the other day, which involves some very good discussions and presentations. Especially good was the networking. I sat at a table with the Director Cook, I think, from Quilcene. And so we're in there, he's talking about his district of 500 students. I'm talking about our district of 2,500 students roughly. And we're sitting at Central Kitsap, which has 11,300 students. And although they're very, very different, we have a lot of the same issues and concerns, especially money. The building we are in was a recently remodeled Olympic High School, just beautiful area. And we toured the CTE labs. Maybe Director Pickens will talk more about that. But at the same time, they just barely passed their EP&O levy to run their schools on the second vote. So it takes a lot of work to accomplish what Director Halverson mentioned, trying to do the best for kids. It doesn't come easy sometimes. Speaking of that, I would encourage all of our citizens in the Sequim School District to view the video of our May 4th budget workshop presented by the ESD, Educational Service Directorship. They provide essential services to about 18 different school districts, mainly in Olympic Peninsula and on the Kitsap Peninsula. But I think it'd be very important for all of you to take a look at that so that you can see what challenges we face so that we can keep teachers as we are looking at some big cuts in our budget over the next year, 2 years, because of declining enrollment. So we've got some tough choices, and it would sure help if the public and the board and the district are coming from a common sense of the bottom line data, the bottom line numbers. And then we can discuss, argue, campaign for which areas shouldn't be cut. All of them shouldn't be cut. That's the problem. So I would encourage you to go online and take a look at that. Let's see what else. We got a Panorama Survey that's coming out for the month of May. We encourage everyone that gets that message to make sure you fill out that survey and get it back in. It'll really, really help us. Caleb mentioned the registration coming up at both of the elementary schools for new kindergartners, new students. That's very, very important. Friday the 13th is no school because it's a snow makeup day, but it did snow last night, not too far from here. So be careful what you wish for. Yeah, you mentioned 30 days, the graduation, 30 days. And 7 days later is the end of school. So we're moving quickly. And but business of the schools will go on, especially with the budget and bringing on board a new superintendent in July. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and just to add, I was appreciated the meeting, the WASD regional meeting, and was very impressed by the CTE layout, and they had just a lot of different equipment, anything from avionics and folks that are students that could essentially graduate and be ready to essentially get their license to fly, minus the hours, just the additional hours that were needed. You know, robotics and just about everything in the level of the Olympic High School really does a nice job of sort of showcasing. So you could look in the windows and you really see right as you go in what's what's happening and what they're doing. They don't tuck it away in the back or anything. And it did sort of remind me, or not remind me, but inspire, I guess, of what things could be when it comes to times for us to consider how facilities should look like, and how students must feel when they walk onto campus and see that many resources, that much quality construction put towards their effort, not to mention the stadium and track, among many other things. There's really a lot. So it kind of reminds me, and certainly wouldn't have a direct impact necessarily on our high schoolers today, but maybe when the time comes, getting that student voice, how involved can we get those who are in middle school even? Maybe, hey, come take a look at what it could be. Might be something that is worthwhile. But yeah, certainly appreciated the collaboration with other board directors as well. And want to thank both of our student reps with their board reports, because it is really nice, and I continue to just think it's nice to hear about all the activities that are going on, because it was just a hard couple of years without it. So whether it be the senior ball, or just we have the operetta going on, so many different things that are going on that I think just brings the life back into our district. And lastly, as we did wrap up our teacher appreciation week, I want to definitely acknowledge our teachers as they juggle instruction and testing and everything else. It's a challenge for sure at every level, whether it be a third grade or at high school. There's a lot that goes into it, and I can appreciate that challenge. It's tough for sure. So thank you to our teachers for at this point in the year. It is a tough point in the year. I know what it feels like in May, and although that finish line is almost there, it's a tough spot. So yeah, and that's all for me. So with that, that brings us to our reports to the board, and I think we have our Wenaha. Do we have, is that being presented online, Tracy? Okay. And do we have Chris with us?
I believe I saw him earlier.
There we go. I couldn't unmute myself. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for having me again this month. Wanted to have a quick update. Today's update is a little less activity, a little bit more progress than from the previous months. A couple of items of note wanted to bring on. We are now 50% DD, going into finalizing the design development for the room on the second floor in the district, which has been renamed the loft based on the discussions to utilize it for multiple purposes. Right now, the design is we're expecting to have a final floor plan and layout here in the next month, and we'll present that in next month's meeting. But it'll be able to be used as a conference room, as a lecture hall, as a meeting room, as well as any arrangement the modular furniture will allow it to be utilized. It'll have AV and have internet capabilities to also do exterior learning. So that design is going full forward, and we should see something which will actually lead to selection of the kind of moving to getting in front of the city for permitting here in the next month. We'll be putting the elevator out to bid at that time as well to get the company on board, whoever's going to win the bid, in order to get it ahead of the design and the lead times for the materials, and hoping for a fall installation. Further conversations with Darlene in the business office has identified we have found another ESSER grant available for HVAC upgrades and air quality control measures. And so we'll be tapping into and utilizing that to actually move forward the OPA gym HVAC upgrade. Instead of it being part of tier 1 and tier 2, it'll be entirely moved to tier 1. So that'll fix a lot of the issues that have been known to plague OPA in regards to the heating and air conditioning throughout the entire gym. The design RFP for that will actually start to be developed and go out probably here by the middle of June. And we'll have to go into design placement for that, which will take a good couple of months going into the fall to understand what that really is going to mean and how that's going to have to be sequenced and scheduled to not affect operations and use of the facility, but hopefully to get ahead of the cold weather coming here in late fall and December, so the students don't have to deal with yet another winter without any heat. We have begun. We've started the installation of the voice systems. A lot of the replacements have been working on that, and that'll continue here for the next month or two. And we are finalizing the fiber optic infrastructure project to start here in the middle of the summer. All those trades have been lined up. Contracts are being built out. So we'll be ready to go come time that school lets out. The portable fire alarms design is sitting in front of the city waiting for permitting. The second that gets done, I'll be coordinating with the school's principal to do an installation at night to finish that work. So that way they don't have any obstruction to utilization of the facility during the install. As of right now, that's the current month's update. Do I have any questions?
Thank you, Chris. Let's see, board members, any specific questions for Chris? Or online virtual board members?
Says Director Stauffer has his hand raised.
All right, Director Stauffer.
Yes, thank you, Chris. Very thorough, and I just appreciate the discussion of what you're lining up. And one item when we talk about permitting, and I know you're actively engaging the city, but I'd like to suggest to my colleagues here that we can reach out to those council members too. We could attend a city council meeting. Now, tonight they're actually on the other screen having their city council meeting. But I think it's important of that community outreach collaboration. They need, we need them to get these permits approved. They need us to ensure quality education, which we're doing for our community. So just a note there, and thank you again, Chris, and your team for your work.
Thank you.
Chris, question I have, is it, and as certain projects start to wrap up, I'm wondering if there is a plan for yourself, and this might even be working with district office, maybe working with Megan about kind of getting the word out once we have this important benchmarks, getting the word out to the public that we can highlight some of these changes once they're completely done.
We haven't really discussed what we want to do at that time. We're just a little premature on any of the projects right now, but especially when it comes to facilities where there's a lot of concerns for the students' quality of life, I think it's well worth getting the word out, letting the students know they're not going to have to go through another period where, especially thinking about OPA with the gym and the the heating, everybody's dealing with temporary heaters. Everybody's dealing with a lot of difficulty in sports and in their extracurricular activities. How we want to go about it, we haven't talked. I think it's good to start having the conversation with Megan, but definitely we want to do something like that. In regards to some of the larger scale items, thinking down the road, for example, something like the track, or if we end up doing, say, the entire upgrade of, when we finish the entire upgrade of the high school's HVAC system, I think that's worth doing a completion ceremony open to the public. So depending on the scale and how it really affects, something that's much more visual and something that actually has much more gravitas, we'll call it, to it, it's definitely worth having more of a public type of ceremony as much as just notification. But we haven't really finalized any of those plans. These are just all ideas up in the air.
Great. No, I appreciate that. I just know it's, you know, things like the track, which I definitely want to get completed, but it's also one of those, you know, it's going to be very easy to see the difference with something like that. But some of these other improvements, it might not get noticed right away, but these are still critical and just so important. And I want to just make sure we're keeping that awareness out there that, you know, these are tax dollars being put hard at work, and we want to make sure to let folks know that they're being put to good use and important use and vital for our students and staff. So
understood. We will take a look at it and make sure that there's efforts put towards that.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Anything else? All right. Well, appreciate your time, Chris. Thank you once again, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good day.
Okay. And we're moving on. We don't have the second presentation. So that brings us to our superintendent report. Superintendent's up.
Just in response to what you were saying about the publicizing what's done, I think a regular art, you know, Facebook and the district website and articles in the paper and all of that, and I think we should call it, you know, our progress reporting on time and under budget, right?
Yeah.
Which often is true.
Yeah.
In these projects, not always, but often, and it's wonderful news because stuff is getting done and it's getting done well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important to communicate that back to the public on all of these items, from the smallest to the largest. You know, people want to know, and they deserve to know. I mean, Megan even already got a little thing in the newspaper about making sure the name of the room on the second floor communicated its true intention, which is called the loft multipurpose room. Mm-hmm. And she's got a little thing in Chalk Talk in the paper, just to even about something presumably that small, but that important, to communicate to the community that the purpose is for multi-purpose. Sure. Not just, it isn't just a board room. Yeah. And it got misconstrued like that in the beginning, just out of ease of reference, I think, and not intending to communicate the actual purpose for the room. And so something, even a piece like that. So you can even imagine when we get to celebrate some of those even bigger chunks of accomplishment, you know, where stuff is really coming to fruition. Yeah. So
I'm excited for even to use it as for student council meetings and that sort of thing, which sure, absolutely, we want students to use it as well. So
we want them to be in the loft.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. Where else? It has such a ring. One other thing, just quickly on the note of community support for students. Mm-hmm. I have the honor of serving in my capacity here, as will all superintendents in this district and region, serve on the Haller Foundation board. And I was part of the scholarship review of the applicants for scholarships from Nia Bay, Clallam Bay, Forks, Crescent, Port Angeles, and Sequim. And the Haller Foundation awarded 12 scholarships of $8,000 each to students in the area. And that will go on ad infinitum. The foundation is doing very well. And they've already given, I don't know what, I think the number today, I hate to say it in case I'm wrong, but I think it was something like $10 million since the beginning. And they intend to continue. And it was just so gratifying to be part of that process on behalf of the kids and see the scholars and the need. They give primarily based on financial need, but every one of the students that applied were scholars and involved in their communities and their schools, and very successful students. So it was just very gratifying. So we need to thank our community partner of the Haller Foundation for what they do for our students. There were students from SWIM who were part of the selection process. But that's all.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions for Superintendent Zook? Okay. All right, thank you very much. And with that, that brings us moving us right along to board business. We have some second readings on policy. It's 10.01 through 10.09. We do have 10.10, which is an item for discussion. So we'll have some discussion on that one. So that one isn't quite ready for second reading based on some additional feedback. But other than that, we will start with 10.0. And happy to hear a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, a motion to approve the second reading and approve this policy.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have discussion?
Now, just for the public, it's policy 1822.
Correct.
The training and development for board members, and it more specifically designates exactly what kinds of trainings are mandated and recommended for board members.
Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by voting online if you're able. Director Johnston, any luck with the online voting?
No, I vote aye.
Thank you. Yeah, with to markers. All right, so that motion is approved. Moving on, 10.02, second reading and approval of policy 2140, comprehensive school counseling programs. Happy to hear a motion.
I move to approve policy 2140 regarding comprehensive school counseling programs.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, go ahead and vote when indicated. While the votes are coming in, I do also want to make sure that our student representatives know that if there's any of these policies, for whatever reason, they feel they want to comment on, your voice is certainly welcome on any of these. So.
And I vote aye.
Thank you. All right, that is approved. Moving on to 10.03, second reading and approval of policy 2161. Special education and related services. Do you have a motion?
I move the approval, second reading and approval of policy 2161, special education and related services.
Have a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, please go ahead and vote when indicated.
I vote yes.
Thank you. All right, and that motion passes. That brings us to 10.04, second reading and approval of policy 3122, excused and unexcused absence. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve 3122.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none, go ahead and please vote when indicated.
I vote yes.
That motion passes. Which brings us to 10.05, second reading and approval of policy 3246, restraint, isolation, and other uses of reasonable force.
Mr. President, I move that we approve policy 3246.
I second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve policy 3246. Discussion. I just say again, I want to call out the fact that these have been reviewed by our fabulous staff that are experts as it relates to how these changes and how it can impact our staff and students. So appreciate their expertise. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and vote. Please vote when indicated, either online or verbally.
Figured it out.
All right, that motion passes. All right. With that brings us to 10.06, second reading and approval of policy 3411, accommodating students with a seizure disorder. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve policy 3411, accommodating students with seizure disorders.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
So this is another one. Sonia Bittner, our school nurse, vetted for us and gave us some good advice. So really appreciate her staff's help and her help in particular.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, please vote when indicated to do so. Well, there, Director Johnston's was one of the first ones to come through. She's all over that.
I'm excited.
All right. That motion is approved. And that brings us to 10.07, second reading and approval of policy 5004, infection control program. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve policy 5004, infection control program.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve 5004. Discussion. Policy 5004. Hearing none, please vote when indicated. All right, that motion is approved unanimously. That brings us to 10.08, second reading and approval of policy 6220, bid or request for proposal requirements. Do we have a motion?
Mr. President, I move to approve policy 6220, bid or request for proposal requirements.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote when indicated. All right, that motion is approved. Which brings us to 10.09, second reading and approval, policy 6970, naming of school facilities and teams. We have a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve policy 6970, naming schools, facilities, and teams.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
Is there a longer title for this one, or did we purposely shorten it?
I think it's complete. Tracy, do you know? Was there a long one?
Looks like it might have been naming schools, facilities, and teams, and the use of mascots, images, and logos. Is that the full title?
It's long for a title, but yes, I think that's it.
As I'm looking at this, I think wasn't the I think I remember from the first reading. I apologize for not seeing this before, but didn't we say we're basically going to just keep the old policy, but just change the title to correlate with the new one? Is that what we did here?
That should be what you're looking at. Yeah. So there was, we had the markup version.
Oh, okay.
And then we have the updated one with our stuff on it.
And it's okay.
Yep. And we've got our RCW on there. Should be exactly the same except for the name.
Okay.
Is that making sense?
I remember talking about it last time.
So if you looked on our website right now under 6970, it should be both exactly the same wording.
Just with a different title. Right? Okay.
And the blurb that they added, that school team below the last paragraph.
I thought I remembered 6970 being, that was a little longer than this, but maybe not.
So I guess my issue or question is, do we have an issue with the title? And should that necessarily stop us from approving 6970?
No, I have no issue with the title. I just want to make sure that we have the right one up here, which I'm sure we do. Probably just.
Our old one is on the screen, or our current one.
Okay. So it just had the, oh, does that say 98 or no?
That's the old one.
Yeah, that's the one that's currently
okay
on. And then this would be
it's the one that was adopted, I think 2021 or.
We updated it in October of 21.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Sorry, don't mean to hold things up. Any further discussion on that end?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just asked if Tracy could pull up the WASDA's policy and legal news, because just for our audience out there that can this is the guidance that we follow, and it talks specifically about, well, actually all the ones we're reviewing and voting on tonight. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor, please please signify by voting when indicated. And that is approved. So that brings us to agenda item 10.10. Yeah, that was, we have that as just as a discussion, just because we wanted just to open this up. There are a few board directors that indicated some changes, both from a last board meeting and then via email, I believe, in the meantime. So wanted to make sure we had clear instructions on this. And the other piece was one of these were postponed, but the other one wasn't. And so, well, they were postponed with different time parameters. And it seemed as if my impression from the board was that these might need to be adopted simultaneously, since one references the other, either that or can't have quite the reference, because right now it would reference the other policy, which until that's adopted, it wouldn't make sense for it to reference a policy that doesn't exist. So a few details that we would need to take a look at. And I believe also there was a request from one of our board directors that wanted some of the language vetted by legal counsel as well. So just in order for us to get all of those things done, we wanted to have that discussion here tonight, and then we could proceed with it accordingly. So with that, I will open up that item for discussion. See if we can have a consensus on how we want to proceed and the timeline for proceeding with both policies. Director Jeffers.
Yeah, I was the one that asked for this one to be pulled out from consideration at the last meeting or between meetings, because I had some possible wording and I don't know what process procedure we might follow to do that. Adding wording about us inserting ourselves into any investigations that might be upon us, because at some point we often sit as a quasi-judicial board, and if we've been actively involved in investigating in the investigation or having inserted ourselves in investigation, that would disqualify one or more of us from actually sitting and deciding any other matter like that. Another one was confidentiality, and making sure a more definite statement that things, confidentiality, especially things that happen in executive session and between the board and the superintendent, that are confidential, not be shared, and just make sure that's highlighted and very clear. I'm adding that a lot of the things we hear on social media and in the public assume we have abilities or responsibilities or legal authority to do things we really can't do. And then civility. I've been pushing or asking about a civility policy between adults and in our school district. And so far I haven't been able to come up with a good one yet, or we haven't brought it up. Possibly this would be a place to insert a civility statement where the members of the board model civility at all times. And given we may have some pretty contentious budget cutting and employee actions and things like that coming up, no matter how things may get in public meetings, that the board maintain their role modeling civility. So I thought, well, maybe this would be the place to put it in. Ethical conduct of the school directors, but I wasn't sure how to do it, because we really haven't done this kind of thing exactly this way. And this particular policy, being in the 1000 series, this is our policy, how we as the board function amongst ourselves. So looking for direction on how we might further discuss this. What are the next steps? Obviously, I think legal needs to take a look at it. Possibly the Washington risk assessment people looking at it to make sure that we are inadvertently not saying something that would make our situation more unclear. So I just offer it up and to decide where to go from here. I think we'll have similar issues with policy 1440, which is how we run our meetings, especially regarding public comment, and policy 1620, which deals with the relationship between the school board and the superintendent and how we, and I think all of those are tied together. And so we may want to look at how we might want to proceed.
All right. I do see Director Stauffer has his hand up. Director Stauffer.
Yes, thank you. Larry mentioned policy 1620. So at the minimum, that needs to be added to both of these as cross references because that establishes our communications and relationships with the superintendent. And there's things in there about disagreeing respectfully, maintaining a learner stance, so forth. So at the very minimum, I would want that added to these. And I would submit that we all review what is in the policy news legal thing again. And then I sent out a, it's called Legislative Committee Norms and Protocols, sent that to all of us. And it has, which comes from Policy Legal News also. And it's how those 25 members of that Ledge Committee conduct business. And very helpful document. And I do appreciate Larry for adding these in here. Maybe we're not looking for a vote tonight. Is that correct? How I understand this? Just a basic discussion. So maybe a more discussion at a workshop again, policy workshop, and that all of us are there type thing. You know, virtual is great here. But those, and then all those things are referenced in those RCWs when we're talking about legal requirements. The bylaws, RCW 28 alpha there, it's bylaws for board, school, government. The certain corrupt practices of school officials, misconduct of public officers. I just want to make sure everybody and our public understands what's in those. Because those are the items actually by law which govern us, and versus someone's I think that opinion or they believe that's how board directors should be held accountable type thing. I just want to make sure everybody knows those RCWs also. So that's all I have to add, and thank you for this conversation.
Director Johnson.
Got it. Thank you also, Director Jeffries, for these suggestions. And obviously there's a lot of thought that has gone into this. I think it's important that we have any suggested changes run by legal, because sometimes the precision of language is important in these kinds of documents, and And so I think that before we take any action, we want to make sure that that we feel confident that these are changes that are consistent with any other legal obligations that we have. I have a couple of specific comments that I think we should just keep in mind when we're going through the particular language. For example, under transparency, when the change says, you know, such transparency cannot include sharing confidential information available to the board directly with any individual not privy to confidentiality. And then when it says, especially with individuals with an adverse interest, well, you can't share confidential information with anyone. And I think adding that clause at the end, it doesn't, I mean, it seems like it sort of makes the prior clause less strong. And so I don't think that's necessary. And so those are the kinds of discussions I think we should have about this particular language. I also have some thoughts. The first paragraph about objectivity, it's really talking about, I think the model language is really talking about maybe financial conflicts of interest more. And I believe I understand the concern behind the proposed changes. I just think we need to make sure that the language is really precise, because there are situations where school board directors may be witnesses. There are maybe instances where a school board member has a concern about how the timing is going on an investigation, or a concern about other things that are legitimate concerns for a school board director to have and to express. And you know, terminology about inserting oneself into investigations, I think might make it unclear what kinds of conduct is acceptable and what's not. And I think that we do, in our role as overseeing the overall conduct of the district, there may be times when we have concerns about how that process is working that are reasonable to express, while still maintaining our objectivity about the merits of the process, or the merits of any individual situation that we may find ourselves having to make substantive decisions about through the appellate process or the appeal process. So those were my initial concerns about those two proposed changes, and I think it would be good for us to get legal input on that. I think the civility language, everybody should certainly strive to be civil in in the way that they express themselves and they conduct themselves with other people. And I think that language is, I don't see any concerns about that from my initial review of it. But again, I think that we just need to have that reviewed. So I appreciate the thought behind this and the effort, and I look forward to our further conversations to get to language that we all feel comfortable with, and that we all that we all support. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, as I'm reflecting on your comments, I can see we want to make sure that if there's any part of it, I think I have a clear idea where the suggestions are going in the spirit of them. We just want to make sure it's not always us that are going to be on the board. So if there's ways in which it could be interpreted in a subjective way, we should make sure that it's really clear what it's asking for, I would guess, from my perspective. And yeah, I appreciate your points, Director Johnston, regarding asking about timelines of investigations. I could see that being different than inserting oneself into it, but it might be helpful to have that as a clear, have it, the language make it a little clearer. And yeah, when it talks about transparency, I would agree that, yeah, if you're not permitted to share confidential information, then I guess you're just not, there's not degrees of not sharing. Either you don't share it, or I guess the especially, although I can appreciate that that could make the impact worse, but the standard is still the same. So that I think, I guess I was almost wondering if, I see that it's under transparency. It almost makes me wonder if, I think the spirit of the transparency almost makes me wonder, I'm not enough Director Jeffries, if this is something they considered, if it almost, that confidentiality piece, does that fall under, could that fall under integrity in lieu of transparency too? Because that's almost the spirit of that could be, when I think of transparency, I think about the open and accountable government, but that one didn't dry out. I'm also wondering do we have another policy that specifically addresses confidentialities regarding either investigations or executive session, those types of things that are already, I'm sure they're called out in a different policy already. Tracy, do you know offhand, or is that?
I don't know offhand. I know
Okay.
there is a professional code of conduct that's listed in.
Okay.
I'm not aware of a policy.
Yeah. Certainly don't have any concerns with the spirit of it whatsoever, but probably good to get these things just double checked, just to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page. Those are my thoughts. Director Officer?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Pat said, and I also appreciate all the work that's gone into this and the effort made to really be clear and to be detailed about ethical behavior. One that, it's so many of these things overlap, and that's part of the problem. You're trying to tease it out. I would almost say that the category of selflessness is really part about being objective. It's not really, it's about being, putting public interest before private interest. So in a way, those two are the same. The part that Pat was talking about school board directs must refrain from taking public positions or inserting themselves, that's almost a matter of understanding the organization or where your place is in it. And so it seems like it isn't necessarily under objectivity either. So I think some of these one could think about how in fact they are related to each other, and there might be some shifting of categories with that objectivity and selflessness. And also I agreed with the point about transparency, that you're looking at the two flips of the coin, the transparency and then confidentiality, and maybe those do need to be separated and teased out a little bit more than they are here. So it may mean shifting of these categories are not absolute. I would imagine we might need to move those around. I like the civility one. I think that, I think about the goal of this is not only to keep us in line and make sure that we do our job right, but it helps to have a reminder to ourselves a bit about what our role is. And so I think it's helpful to have, as detailed as possible, a prescription for what it is to be a good boardman. And I think this goes a long way towards that.
Yeah, I wonder, some of these statements possibly that are of concern that you mentioned would maybe fit better in policy 1620, possibly, the expectations of how we interact. For example, the inserting one, inserting ourselves into an investigation there, and you mentioned Director Pickett mentioned there might be a time or a need when we need to get clarification, but there's a process to do that. Possibly questioning the superintendent about this or that and getting feedback that way versus going out and me calling up somebody and say, tell me more about this situation that I heard about. And I think that I would rather call the superintendent and say, hey, tell me more about this situation I heard about, because that automatically puts me in the awkward position where if it does come to the board, I should recuse myself from that sort of thing. Or I may just gum up the whole works by, talking to somebody. But maybe 1620 would be a better place for some of this language. I do agree about the clarification and clearing it up and the fact that we won't always be here. There'll be other board members. And I think we often make the mistake, well, common sense tells us that nobody would do that. But I've learned that common sense isn't always so sensible and definitely isn't common. So trying to spell that out in a way that makes sense. I would not want to come up with a policy or procedure that listed the 26 things you cannot do or say. That would be inappropriate. But somehow make it very clear that we have definite roles as board members. And I guess the other thing is that, listening to some of the public comments and social media and things, I think there's a great misunderstanding out there about exactly what it is school board members do and can do. And we've been accused of not doing things that we really can't do. And so I think, at some stage, we need to clarify that with the public. I think I heard a little bit of that this weekend at the District 4 meeting from other school board members, like, just all the stuff that's out there where, members of the public misunderstand, or they just don't have all the information, or they have a completely, they just don't understand how school boards operate. And school boards operate as an entity. Our governance is totally different than a city council, or totally different than House and Senate representatives. We're a different kind of governance organization, and somehow we need to make it clear to ourselves, then make sure the public knows, how things are, how we operate.
Yeah. One detail that came to mind, which sometimes happen, which in my mind, I wouldn't interpret this as inserting myself into an investigation. But if I knew that there was an investigation going on and somebody came to me to report something, I don't know what they're about to report until they report it. So I obviously hear them out before I refer them on to, I'm going to ask that you contact our superintendent or something. But I, of course, have to hear that before I know where to direct that to. Certainly not something, again, not that I would interpret that as inserting myself, but at the same time, I don't know until you don't know what to do with something until you hear it. So it can get a little tricky. So and might be just more along the lines of I think what you had suggested, Director Stauffer. We do have policies that existing that are in place that do talk about receiving information and then sharing that information when it comes up, so that I could see some correlation there. Director Stauffer? You're muted, Director Stauffer.
Thank you. I was just moving my hand to the mute. Tracy, could you pull back up the policy legal news and to this section here? And I think this is, for me, it's vital to my understanding of it. And when you have the basic 4 bullet points there that the policy was then developed on. Now this is discretionary, so it gives us some options to work through it. So if you keep scrolling down, so it talks about both of these that we've been looking at, Tracy. Excuse me. So look at under 1825, it talks about demanding special treatment, secretly recording, refusing to comply with Department of Health mandates. These are here the reasons that WASDA decided to have these policies. And I know this is a discussion among many school boards across our state, and how to apply it, how to interpret it type thing. RCWs are great to go and read and get the meaning of, because those came from law. It was a bill that got passed and then said this is the way to conduct business. And yeah, it is how to convey this to our community, to any community. As folks feel, well, I'll just call my friend in the school board and they'll make this change. But there's 5 of us, and where we conduct business is right here and now. It's not through the drive-through at Tootsie's. It's right here at this meeting that we're demonstrating to the public this is our work. Now, the city council is very similar because of their form of government, which is city manager strong. So think of the city manager as the superintendent, and then those 7 city council members, they can't operate in a silo, but their work also requires them to conduct their business in public as we do. So just, I think it's worthy actually of a op-ed in the paper, just rolling stuff out that more to enhance those communications with our public, because obviously folks have a different understanding. All those policies, the 1620, which is the board superintendent communications, in which that one we go and sign as a group after we've had conversations, like after in goal setting, after in a workshop, retreat, whatever we want to call it. And so I'm glad we're having this discussion here, and but just encourage look at those. Yeah, is that, there we go. So 1620, it's got supporting each other, maintaining confidentiality, focusing on discussions. You know, all that. We could add another bullet to that from this other one. I can see that. So I don't know so we're not voting tonight. Is that correct on this one? We'll be moving it to at a later date or further discussions. Is that how I understand it?
Yeah, my next task would be to our superintendent to see if perhaps and Tracy, of course, to see if they feel like they've gotten enough feedback to where they could also work with legal to make sure to bring us a draft that sort of captures both not only our concerns but also feedback with the different items of that.
I think that's really possible. I think it's a good next step.
Okay.
You've brought a lot of ideas forward. You want to make sure that the language is clear for others besides yourselves, and that's good, and that you cover all your bases. So yeah, and pull something together from the conversations that have been going on and get it back out to you and to legal for review, and then you can see if you're ready after that, at that point, to take any action on it or not.
And certainly in the meantime, work with myself and Vice President Johnston, if we can kind of work to help that. Of course, the entire board is making the final decision on it. Even at a first reading level, the entire board making that decision. But if we can help navigate that in any way, we're certainly happy to. So,
sure.
Dr. Jeffers.
I make a couple of suggestions. We probably ought to have a workshop on this one before we go to first reading, public workshop, because I think I would ask also, you might look at 1620 and then look at 1620P, which is the procedure. That's the one that board members sign, and make sure that if we're going to clarify anything in this policy 1815, that it's reflected in 1620 policy and procedure, so that they have the same language and same expectations. So you might want to look at both of them.
Good idea. And
earlier, the question was about confidentiality and other policies. Yeah, confidentiality, I think, is mentioned in other policies, but it's often in regard to a student, keeping student information confidential.
Yeah, but it's broader than that.
And I'm not sure there's any policies about staff, even staff, administrators, superintendents,
absolutely,
board members keeping things confidential. I don't know.
We'll take a look. Yeah, thank you. That'll be the next step then, if that's how you want to proceed.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Director Jeffries brought up an idea, which is have it at a workshop specifically in lieu of going to a first reading first before going to a first reading. Just wondered if the board wanted to weigh in on that.
See, having a policy workshop in
their policy workshops.
We schedule them throughout the year just to kind of pad. We were going to do some work with Tammy Campbell. Those were going to take the place. So they've not been canceled. Certainly a placeholder. Wouldn't be a special meeting since it's already county.
Is it on the board meeting agenda?
I don't know if it's on that.
Mr. Chair, what do our students have to say? We haven't called on them.
Any thoughts on these particular matters?
Yes, I was actually gonna I don't know if we're doing any like adds to what I saw in the bolded text in the document, but I was just gonna say about the transparency part. Transparency is how you build trust, and not only with the public, but also with the students. So I think that would be a nice idea to just, instead of having the student representatives just reporting to you what the students like think and what they want to do with the school, I feel like we should also have the responsibility to report back to the students what the board is doing. And this is what I was also talking with Director Halverson. When it comes to the student voice, I feel like they would be more ready to initiate a step or to do something good with the board if they know that they are being heard by the board, and if they know that what they are asking at some point is being processed by the board, and that's how we would let them know. So I feel like our job is should not only be student board, but also board to students. So yeah, just for the transparency part, like what we're doing with the budget, or like when they ask, oh, what is going on with the track or with the football field, like the big issues that we have in school right now, I feel like we should let them know what we're doing and what are like our top priorities, and then when do their requests come at some point. So yeah, just wanting to add that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. That as you talked about that transparency, really think that that even kind of furthered my thought on that, not to back up to that policy, but that furthered the thought on that bullet when it talks about transparency. I am, again, not that the confidentiality piece isn't important, but I almost think I don't want to take away from the spirit of transparency, because if we think about the idea is the vast majority of everything that we do, there's a reason this is a public meeting, right? And everything that we should do is in public. The vast majority of the things we do should be in public. The confidentiality, those are actually the exceptions, because for a particular reason, we have to protect the confidentiality of a student or even potentially a staff member. But those are few and far between. The vast majority of all that we do is open to the public, and we want the public to be able to hear this conversation that's taking place today. We want the information to get back to the students. So as I'm thinking about this more, I'm almost thinking maybe we should have that confidentiality piece honored somewhere. Absolutely, it's important. But not to take away from the spirit of transparency. Like, let's not have it say, we're going to be transparent, except, you know, it does take away the spirit of it, though. Not take away this. I think y'all kind of get what I'm saying a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. However, I think we need to make it clear we're going to be transparent to the point that we're not going to violate the confidentiality. You can accuse us then of not being transparent, because we're not going to. There's certain things we just cannot tell you. Period. And that's part of some of the problems you see in a society, in the nation, the state, whatever, is there are people that think transparency means transparency and you need to tell us everything, because if you don't, you are being sneaky and underhanded. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to clarify that.
If I may add on to that idea, I think too, that just to speak of the narrowness of the confidentiality often is around legal matters or personnel issues that, or student issues that aren't to be shared for privacy reasons. And so to kind of hone in on that and a little narrow it down a bit in concept to, in contrast to general transparency on all board, other board matters, you know, like routine business and all, you know, how the budget works and all of those things. But there are specific reasons for confidentiality often have to do with, you know, like, well, like the things that I just mentioned. So I won't keep going.
Yeah, and then there are items that remain confidential for a period of time too. The example, like until it's resolved, or until, like, one process I could think of, if we were making a bid on a piece of property, for example, the public will eventually know what was spent on it. But just if anyone's made any kind of real estate deal, you know, that sometimes if we publicly gave a threshold as to how much we were willing to, then that puts us at a disadvantage in that bid process, right? So it makes sense that that would be confidential, but it's not in that kind of situation. It's only confidential for a short period of time. Eventually, everybody will know what is being spent, because those are public dollars being spent, of course. So,
and that is actually called out in RCW as legitimate use of executive session and confidentiality for things such as bids and real estate deals and legal matters and those kinds of things. And that falls, that's a great example to help explain the concept, I think.
Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, I think there's that feedback.
Yeah, I think we're, you know, what to do.
All right. Excellent. Any additional feedback? Okay. Well, that brings us, I do want to stop a little bit on 11.01. We do have a couple of conflicts coming up with our next scheduled board meeting, to where we're not going to be able to hold that on our next scheduled date, which was going to be the 23rd, I believe. Is that right? May 23rd. And then, so as I was discussing this with Tracy a little bit and Pat, we were looking at later in the week of the following week. But then that started getting really close to our meeting June 6th anyway. And so we were looking at that first week of June, but then does it really make sense? There's a lot that has to go into, you know, getting a meeting prepared and everything. If it just made sense for us to just have a few more items on and just cancel the meeting of the 23rd and put those items on the meeting of the June 6th. And certainly if there was a need, some kind of urgent need, as always, we would always have the option to pull a special meeting given 24-hour notice. But that was the idea, and that Pat and I discussed, and wanted to just bring it up in case there was any objection to doing that. Director Jeffries?
So the only, I guess, if it's appropriate to ask, or I would be in favor of moving only if there's a valid reason to move it. I don't know what the reason is.
May I speak to it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, for one thing, Tracy won't be here. And that okay, enough said. Okay, no one can do the magic that she does. And so that is the main reason that we were suggesting that maybe we could adjust because of that. She's rarely gone. But when she is gone, we understand now what important that is. And we will not be able to have a backup person trained sufficiently for the meeting on the 25th.
So
Renee was unable to make it today, and she was out ill.
So I assume she's not available that week?
Well, she wouldn't have had the enough training by that time.
No. Tracy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
Tracy's not available here on that 25th.
That entire week.
She's gone.
Yeah.
And so we all know that Tracy runs the show. So without her, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And she will not be in town. So, to me, I think it's possible if you're agreeable to do sufficient business at the following meeting on June 6th. But that's certainly up to you.
Any other negative impacts that you can foresee affecting the rest of the district by us doing that?
I don't believe that there would be, but like you say, we can always, you know, if there were some urgent matter, and sometimes they come up, as we know, we could certainly make it work the old-fashioned way with paper and pencil.
Yeah,
we had to do it.
Yeah,
we could do that.
Okay.
I've been through a lot of those. I just haven't done that.
Yeah.
So, nor am I able. So,
Director Stauffer?
Yes, I was looking on my calendar and it said it was a red letter day, and then I went, oh, it's Victoria Day on the 23rd in Canada.
Victoria Day?
oh, well, Victoria can run the meeting. It's her day. It's perfect.
So, but I would be concerned of that. We do need to sign some things. Like I was thinking of the resolution that we approved on the 13th. Do we need to come in, or excuse me, approved on the 6th? Do we need to stop in and sign that? And, or are we going to move to electronic signatures? And there's, I don't want to go with the, well, we can always just hold a special meeting, because scheduling is hard at times with doing that. And so I don't want to make that a practice. How long is Tracy gone for, and what other, is it mainly because of our hybrid format we're using right now? Or do we just do one that's not hybrid? Though a couple of us, you know, like today, with me being having some virus or that, I would not want to be there in person and share that. And so that's hybrid has enabled us to do that. And So that's our next meeting. Then would be the 6th of June. Is that what we're kind of talking about?
Right.
Don't know if I want to go out almost a month without another meeting. That's me right now.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of nervous and don't like to go like a whole month at this time of year without a meeting, but I would defer to the superintendent. If there's business that we have to conduct, we have to conduct it. And we will need to figure out how to do that. I know there's some new OPMA regs coming down. I don't know exactly what they are. Right now, the regs, I think, are we must hold a Zoom meeting and we can meet in person also. I don't know that the new rules and regs coming down will allow us not to have a Zoom meeting of some kind.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But you know, there are people that can handle that. So I'll defer to you, but if there's, with all the budget decisions and things that we got to have coming down, I'm guessing there may be approvals that need voting on before the June 6th.
Yeah, I think when we brought, the reason we had mentioned the special meeting is if there was something in particular that unanticipated that came up that did require board action, we have that option. So I want to specify that that would be the event that that would require a special meeting. My understanding, and I'll pass to you, Superintendent Zuck, but when I had talked with Tracy, my understanding was that there was no impact, no actions that were between now and the 6th that would impact the district in any way. Is that correct?
There's nothing that we know of at this time. There are no budget timelines associated with it right now until July. There's nothing that we are aware of, as Tracy and I looked at it, and I think you and Tracy spoke. That's not to say we live in a world where things happen and things come up, but you know, there are other months and when there's only one board meeting, as I understand, like July and December or something, perhaps. I think it's certainly what the will of the board, but I would just suggest that I think it is conceivable that we could do without one, unless there's something, you know, eminently important that we are unaware of at this point. There's nothing pending, no budget actions, no staff actions, anything that we're aware of.
And Pat too. Pat, Director Johnson.
Yeah, I would just say it sounds like the superintendent and Tracy have kind of surveyed the landscape and think that there's nothing that will require our attention between now and then. I think Tracy ought to be able to take a vacation once in a while. And we should defer to their judgment, like I said, with the understanding that if there is a need for a special meeting, that we can do so. But it sounds to me like it would just add a lot of extra stress to try to hold that meeting on that date. If we do have the requirement to do the statutory requirement or administrative requirement to still do it virtually as well as in person, and if it reasonably can be assumed that we can move all the any additional work over into the June 6th meeting, I think that we should defer and do that.
Let's go with Director Halverson, just so we get different voices, and then we'll go back to.
My view is that, again, I trust the superintendent to make this, to guide us on this, and that we do have the flexibility to meet if we need to. So since we have that flexibility, and since it would be, I think, really difficult to run an effective meeting without Tracy, I'm quite comfortable with foregoing the meeting, knowing that we could have a special meeting if we needed.
Okay. Director Stauffer, I don't know who was first, Director Stauffer, and then I think Director Jeffries again.
Yes, so it's actually a business item. We need to make have a motion and take a vote because this is a published calendar. Not trying to make it harder, but we do need to have a business item on that to either not have a meeting or postpone a meeting. And WASDA did say on Saturday that there is a new open public meeting act process coming out. I think it was supposed to be published here before the end of the month. That gives, I don't know, but we do need to do a business item on this, I believe, or we take it by consensus here. But this is a posted calendar and that we voted on last year or type thing. So how would you like us to proceed there, Mr. Chair?
Although I don't know for sure, I believe that it is as needed in the purview of the president and the vice president to make adjustments or schedule or change the meeting schedules, but I don't know that for sure. So I'm going to check on that, and while I'm doing that, I believe Director Jeffries also has a comment.
Yeah, I wouldn't be adverse to doing a motion tonight if it to make it. I'm not sure it would be any harm to make a motion. Secondly, that would mean we would have a meeting June 6th and June 20th. And our next meeting would be July 18th, which would mean 2 meetings with Superintendent Zook. And then the 18th, we'd be swearing in our new superintendent.
That's correct.
I just made that statement as an observation, not as an accusation.
You are correct,
yeah.
Sir. Yes. You are.
I mean, that's just how fast things are moving.
Yeah.
I remember when we started the superintendent search a long time ago, you know, when we came up with the first interim, seemed like it was going to be a long way away before and here we got a month or 2 more meetings and then a new superintendent.
All right.
Does that give you enough time?
Yeah. But if we wanted to have a motion, we certainly could. If the board thinks that is how they want to proceed.
So it's just mainly a motion to cancel the next meeting.
Mm-hmm. May 23rd meeting. We do have a special meeting on the 12th hearing, but it's not a regular board meeting. But just be clear that it's the next regularly scheduled board meeting on the 23rd of May.
Yeah. Director Stauffer, is your hand still up? Or is that a new hand?
That's a new hand. I think. Could be my foot pretty soon. I'm about ready to follow my chair again. I motion that we cancel the May 23rd meeting. And yeah, right now just to make them So I'm just troubled because we're under information and not under business, but I guess that we're all here kind of consensus. I was looking at my handy dandy Robert's rules that WASDA gave us last week, or at Ledge Committee, trying to, but I think we could, if we're all good here. But my motion is to cancel the next meeting, the May 23rd meeting.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion or any further discussion, I should say.
Just, it makes sense. Would have been good to have it. Well, yeah, it makes sense. And if we need to hold a special meeting, then just that we have plenty of time to get that out to the public, maybe a little more than 24 hours type thing. And
yep. Yeah, nothing saying we can't get the notice out more
Earlier than that,
exceed the 24 hours for sure. So, okay. Any additional discussion? Tracy, we do voice vote on this?
Voice vote?
Yeah, or, unless you don't want to.
No, that's fine.
Okay, we'll do a voice vote on this one. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I heard everybody's voice, so that is unanimous. That is approved, so we will cancel that meeting. And any other items for the good of the order? Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and adjourn. Have a good evening, everybody.
Adjourn and put the tables.
good night.